The dawn didn't rise. It detonated. A scar of gold tore across the horizon, spilling fire over the Zardok Range, lighting valleys that hadn't known peace since men first learned to aim. Commander Marcus Hale flattened himself against a ridge of broken shale, the barrel of his rifle pressed into the dust. The air was knife-thin, the kind that made every breath feel earned. 21 years in uniform had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now they were screaming. 6 sentries on the roof, 2 in the courtyard, 1 walking the south wall, whispered Corporal Maytan. Her breath came out in shards. The binoculars trembled once, then steadied. They're twitchy, sir, like they already know something's coming. That was what worried Hale. The compound sat squat in a valley scarred by centuries of war, every corner of it too deliberate, too quiet. Viper Team had come to retrieve 2 kidnapped engineers before the Taliban cell decided ransom was slower than execution. A textbook op, Command had said. But Hale had learned long ago, textbooks get you killed. He checked his watch, 0527, wind from the north, 8 knots. Temperature drop meant the air would bend sound, a perfect morning to kill or die. The first shot came so fast it sounded like a blink. A rooftop guard's head snapped back, blood misting against the gray dawn. The rifle clattered to the ground. The others froze. No sound of an outgoing shot. No muzzle flash, just silence, and a spreading ripple of panic. "What the hell?" May started. "Quiet," Hale hissed. His scope swept the ridges, nothing but shifting heat. The second shot came seconds later. Another guard fell. Same surgical precision. Whoever it was wasn't just a sniper. This was art. "There," May breathed, pointing. "Northwest ridge, 900 meters, between the rock spires." Hale saw her then. A silhouette barely distinguishable from the landscape, motion fluid, precise, almost inhuman. A woman, small-framed, wrapped in sand-colored camouflage, moving with a ghost's patience. Wind caught the edge of her scarf, a flicker like a signal. In that frozen second, Hale forgot to breathe. The woman fired again. 1 shot, 1 kill. No wasted movement, no hesitation. Within 2 minutes, half the compound sentries were down. The rest ran for cover, shouting in Pashto, firing blindly into the empty hills. "Commander," May said, voice shaking, "do we engage?" Hale's pulse was calm when he answered. "No, we move when she stops." The sniper's rhythm was eerie, deliberate, unhurried. Each shot sounded like punctuation, ending a life, a sentence, a command. When her rifle finally fell silent, the valley was still except for the wind. Hale raised his hand, signaled advance. Viper Team slid down the slope, ghosts in their own right. They breached the wall where the bricks had already been shattered by fear. The air inside smelled of cordite and sweat. 2 hostages, engineers from Kansas, sat tied to pipes in the corner, eyes wide, faces hollow. Hale cut them loose, whispering, "You're safe. Don't make noise." The man nodded. The woman couldn't speak. Outside, the last echo of a helicopter reached Hale's ears. Extraction was inbound. But before boarding, he turned his binoculars back to the ridge. She was still there, the sniper, a lone figure against the rising sun. She wasn't hiding now. She watched him openly, calmly, as if waiting for him to acknowledge her. For a long moment, 2 soldiers separated by a kilometer of dust and war studied each other. Then she lifted her hand, not to wave, but to adjust her rifle strap. She turned away and vanished into the rock as if the desert had swallowed her whole. Back at Forward, Operating Outpost Talon, Hale filled out his report, but the numbers blurred on the page. Intelligence spoke of a female marksman rumored to haunt the borderlands, called the Falcon by locals. No affiliation, no record, just a ghost who hunted ghosts. That night, an encrypted signal cracked through the comms. Taliban chatter, urgent, panicked. They were massing again, hundreds. The attack would begin at dawn. Jonah Khatri, his intel officer, appeared at his side. "They're not after us," he said quietly. "They're hunting her." Hale looked out the window, past the wire, toward the jagged horizon. The desert wind had changed direction. He felt it then, a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. Whatever storm was coming, that woman was at its center. And somehow, he knew, they were already on the same side of it. The storm hit at dawn. There was no warning, no buildup of distant gunfire, no scouts returning with bad news. Just an explosion that ripped the east wall apart and threw half of Outpost Talon into chaos. Commander Marcus Hale hit the ground hard, rolling behind a barrier as sand and shrapnel filled the air. "Contact! All stations! Repel assault!" he barked into his radio. His ears rang with overlapping gunfire. Through the haze, he saw dark figures charging through the smoke, their movements too coordinated, too disciplined for local militants. Corporal Maytan slid beside him, dragging a wounded soldier by his vest. "They're everywhere, sir. East and north sectors breached." "Get him to medbay, then back to the line," Hale ordered. "And tell Jonah I want drone eyes now." A mortar shrieked overhead, landing close enough to suck the air from Hale's lungs. The shockwave lifted him halfway to his knees before he slammed back down. Sand burned his face. He tasted metal. "Commander, drone feed up!" Jonah Khattri's voice cracked through the static. "They're coming from 3 angles. Coordinated strike teams, not random insurgents. Whoever's leading this knows our layout." "Newman," Hale muttered, loading a fresh magazine. "He's testing us. He's not here for the base. He's here for someone." "Someone?" Jonah asked. "You'll see soon enough," Hale replied grimly. Machine gun fire ripped through the barricades. May ducked as rounds sparked off a nearby turret. "We can't hold this much longer." "Then we don't hold, we move." Hale grabbed her shoulder. "Pull your squad to the fuel yard. We'll bottleneck them there. Asai!" She nodded and sprinted off, voice hoarse as she shouted orders. The compound erupted into a blur of movement. Marines darting between walls, medics hauling stretchers, the distant thud of artillery closing in. Hale took position atop a broken watchtower, scanning the horizon through his scope. He saw them then. Fighters cresting the dunes in formation, flags whipping in the wind. Behind them, armored trucks rolled forward, machine guns bristling like fangs. "They've got armor," Hale hissed. "Jonah, tell air support we're lighting flares. We need birds in the sky 5 minutes ago." "Copy, sir, but they're 20 clicks out," Jonah replied. "We're on our own until then." Story of my life. Hale shouldered his rifle and fired. A gunner dropped from the nearest truck. Another climbed up to replace him and met a single, precise bullet from somewhere beyond the ridge. Hale froze. That shot hadn't come from his men. He adjusted his scope, searching the cliffs north of the base. There, just for a heartbeat, he caught a glint of metal, the unmistakable silhouette of a sniper in position. The ghost was back. "Jonah," he said slowly, "we've got overwatch on the northern ridge." "Enemy?" "No, an angel with bad manners." Below, May's squad unleashed hell. Grenades arced through the smoke, explosions lighting up the sandstorm like lightning strikes. Hale saw her silhouette through the haze, methodical, fearless. She moved between cover like a shadow stitched to the gunfire. "East sector clear," she shouted. "Good," Hale answered, "but we're not done." The armored trucks roared closer, spitting tracers. Hale ducked behind concrete, feeling the heat of passing rounds. Then the ridge sniper fired again. One truck detonated, fuel tanks igniting in a blinding roar. The explosion shook the ground, sending flames licking at the night sky. "Whoever she is," May gasped, eyes wide, "she's saving our asses." "Don't rely on her," Hale warned. "She's got her own mission." "Then why help us?" He didn't answer, because he didn't know. The radio crackled again. "Commander, intercepted chatter, they're not retreating." Jonah's tone was tight with fear. "They're hunting someone named Falcon." Hale went still. "Falcon," he repeated, "the same call sign from the intel drops." "Whoever she is, she's their target," Jonah confirmed. "They think she's here." "She's not—" Hale stopped himself. He wasn't sure anymore. The enemy surged again, firing wildly now. But the sniper's shots were faster, cleaner, surgical. Fighters fell before they even cleared the smoke. The ridge glowed with the faint flash of a long-range rifle, one shot at a time, then silence. Hale stood amid the wreckage, chest heaving. Smoke coiled above him, mixing with dawn. The air was thick with the smell of oil, blood, and burning earth. "All units," he said into the radio, voice steady. "Sound off." One by one, responses came in, injured, exhausted, but alive. May limped toward him, helmet dented. "Sir, look." She pointed toward the northern cliffs. On the horizon, silhouetted against the rising sun, stood a lone figure with a rifle slung across her shoulder. Even at that distance, Hale felt her watching him. He lowered his weapon. The wind carried her voice, soft, faint, but real. "Tell your people to dig in, Commander," she said through the radio. "They're coming again, and next time they'll bring their king." The fires at Talon still burned when the sun broke over the horizon. Smoke rose in thin, twisted ribbons, marking the graves of those who hadn't survived the night. The base was quiet now, too quiet, the kind of quiet that waits for its next heartbeat. Commander Marcus Hale stood at the shattered gate, his face streaked with grime. His men were alive, but barely. May was binding a gash on her forearm with a strip of torn cloth. Jonah's eyes were bloodshot as he scrolled through intercepted transmissions. and out beyond the dunes, the wind carried whispers that the enemy wasn't finished. "Commander," Jonah said, approaching with the tablet clutched tight. "They're regrouping. Intercepted chatter confirms it. Tariq al-Numan's lieutenants are pulling every unit back toward the Valley Pass. They'll hit us again tonight." Hale exhaled slowly. "Then we don't give them the chance." Before Jonah could answer, the sharp click of a rifle echoed behind them. Hale spun, weapon raised, but instead of an enemy, he found a woman, standing tall, calm, framed by smoke, the sniper, the one they called Falcon. "You should work on your security, Commander," she said, lowering her rifle. "I walked straight through your perimeter." May froze mid-motion, eyes wide. "You've got to be kidding me." Hale didn't lower his weapon. "You just saved this base from being erased. Now tell me who the hell you are." The woman removed her scarf, revealing sharp eyes the color of cold steel. "Captain Arya Vega," she said evenly, "formerly Task Force Orion, before the military decided we didn't exist." Jonah blinked. "Orion? The Black Ops unit that vanished 2 years ago?" "Not vanished," Arya said quietly. "Erased by someone inside your command." She dropped a data drive onto the nearest crate. "That's Numan's network, funding routes, safe houses, command structure, everything he's built since the fall of Jalalabad." Hale stared at the drive. "You had this the whole time?" "I stole it 6 months ago. I've been hunted ever since. That's why Numan came here last night. He thought I was inside your base." "Why didn't you just hand this over?" May demanded. "You let people die." Arya's voice sharpened. "Because I couldn't trust anyone. Not until I knew who the traitor was." She glanced between them. "Someone high up in your chain of command has been feeding Numan our troop movements and intelligence drops. My team found out, so they killed them all." Jonah looked pale. "You're saying Newman's got a mole in Central Command?" Arya nodded. "Someone with access to clearance protocols. Someone powerful enough to bury my unit and make me a ghost." Hale holstered his weapon. "Then you're here for revenge." "I'm here for closure," she replied, "but revenge works too." The wind picked up, carrying the low rumble of engines far off in the valley. Jonah swore under his breath. "Drones just spotted movement. Convoys, heavy trucks. They're coming again." "Newman," Hale muttered. "He's not sending lieutenants this time." Arya's eyes narrowed. "No, he's coming himself, and he's bringing his best." Hale stepped closer. "Then we stop him here, together." Arya studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "We can turn Talon into a trap. There's only one way into the Valley Pass. If we draw him in and collapse it, we can bury his entire convoy." Me grinned through bloodied lips. "Finally, a plan I like." Jonah pulled up a terrain schematic. "We've got a narrow kill zone here," he said, pointing to a canyon. "If we plant C4 along both ridges and detonate once his lead vehicles enter, we can box them in." "Dawn." "I'll take Overwatch," Arya said immediately. "My rifle can cover the northern approach." "You'll take support," Hale corrected. "You're not dying alone on that ridge." Arya gave a small smile. "Commander, I stopped dying a long time ago." Before he could argue, the base intercom crackled to life. "Incoming vehicles! 5 clicks and closing!" Hale turned to his team. "Everyone move! May, prep your fire teams. Jonah, wire the detonators. Arya, find your perch." They scattered into motion, every step echoing like a countdown. The sun dipped below the ridges, bleeding red across the sand. Engines roared louder, an army closing in. Hale took one last look at Arya as she disappeared toward the cliffs. "You better be right about this," he muttered. Her voice came back over comms, steady and low. "Trust me, Commander. By the time this is over, Numan will wish he'd stayed a ghost." The horizon flared with headlights. Dozens of vehicles poured into the canyon like a flood of steel and hate. And in the heart of Outpost Talon, Marcus Hale gripped his rifle and waited for hell to arrive. The desert night ignited with sound. Engines roared through the Valley Pass, headlights cutting through dust like blades of white fire. Outpost Talon sat on the ridge above, half broken but defiant, its defenders preparing for one last stand. Commander Marcus Hale crouched beside the detonator box, headset pressed tight to his ear. "Jonah, status." "C4's armed across both ridges," Jonah answered from the southern flank. "We've got 15 charges wired and ready. Once they're in the canyon, you give the word." Hale turned toward the high ridge where Arya Vega lay prone behind her rifle. Through his binoculars, he could see her silhouette steady against the moonlight, calm amid the chaos. "Falcon, you in position?" "You in?" "Locked in," she replied. "Lead convoy entering the kill zone. 17 vehicles, heavy guns. Numan's in one of them. I can feel it." May's voice cut through the comms. "Then let's make him feel it back." The first trucks rolled into the canyon, engines growling low. Fighters clung to their sides, scanning the cliffs but seeing only darkness. Hale waited, counting under his breath. 3, 2, 1. He hit the switch. The canyon exploded. Walls of fire roared upward, swallowing steel and men alike. Shockwaves punched through the air, raining rock and flame. The first half of the convoy vanished in a storm of molten dust. Screams echoed off the cliffs. "Direct hits!" Jonah shouted. "We got him!" "Not all of them," Arya warned. "Rear vehicles accelerating, looks like counteroffensive." The surviving trucks pushed through the inferno, machine guns opening up toward the cliffs. Bullets screamed past Hale's head. He ducked behind a boulder, then yelled, "Return fire! Don't let them regroup!" May's team unleashed everything: grenades, mounted turrets, tracer rounds slicing the smoke. Arya's rifle cracked again and again, each shot surgical. A gunner fell, then another. Then the heavy turret fell silent as her bullet split the barrel clean through. Hale climbed higher for a better vantage. The smell of burning diesel and cordite stung his throat. Through the heat haze, he spotted a black vehicle forcing its way up the canyon wall, armored plating, tinted glass. "Jonah," he barked. "Confirm, Newman's in the lead truck." Jonah adjusted the drone feed. "Negative, he's in the rear. That one's a decoy." "Falcon," Hale said. "You see him?" Arya exhaled slowly. "Rear vehicle, north track. I've got eyes. Take the shot." She steadied her rifle, breath sinking with her heartbeat. Through her scope, she saw him, Tariq al-Numan. Clean suit, arrogant calm, sitting in the back seat like the world belonged to him. She lined up the shot and squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck home, but not deep enough. The window spiderwebbed, and Newman's head snapped sideways, blood tracing his cheek. His driver slammed the accelerator. The truck swerved and vanished into the maze of dust. "Damn it!" Arya hissed. "He's hit, but alive!" Hale's jaw clenched. "Jonah, cut him off." "On it!" Jonah's squad detonated the secondary charges, collapsing part of the ridge. The canyon became a maze of falling rock. The truck skidded, tires screaming, and crashed sideways. The doors burst open, smoke pouring out. Arya was already moving, sliding down the slope with the rifle strapped to her back. Hale followed, covering her from above. May's team advanced behind them, sweeping through wreckage and twisted metal. Flames licked at the sand. The air reeked of oil and blood. At the bottom of the canyon, Newman crawled from the wreck, one hand clutching his pistol, the other bleeding. He looked up as Arya approached, helmet off, face lit by fire. "Well," he rasped, smiling through blood, "the ghost returns." Arya leveled her rifle at his chest. "You killed my team." "They were already dead," Newman said. "You just didn't bury them fast enough." Before she could pull the trigger, gunfire erupted from the ridge. Newman's bodyguards had survived the blast. Bullets tore through the air. Hale grabbed Arya and dragged her behind the truck as sparks exploded off the metal. "May, suppressive fire now," Hale shouted. "Copy!" May's machine gun roared, mowing down the ridgeline. Jonah's grenades followed, scattering bodies and dust. The roar faded, replaced by silence and the distant crackle of burning fuel. When Hale looked back, Newman was on his knees, coughing, defeated but defiant. "You think this changes anything?" he sneered. "I have friends in high places. Kill me and 10 more will take my name." Arya stepped forward, lowering her rifle until the muzzle met his chest. "Then let's make sure they remember what happens when ghosts bite back." She pulled the trigger. Newman fell, the echo of the shot rolling across the valley like thunder. For the first time in years, Arya Vega let herself breathe. Hale placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's over." She shook her head. "No, Commander, it's just started. Whoever helped him, they're still out there." The flames behind them rose higher, painting their faces orange. Above the canyon, dawn began to break again. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a warning. The dawn after the battle rose weak and red, bleeding through the haze that clung to the canyon. The air smelled of smoke, gunpowder, and endings. Outpost Talon was quiet for the first time in weeks. Too quiet, the kind of silence that comes after history makes up its mind. Commander Marcus Hale stood on the ridge, the sun behind him casting a long shadow over the battlefield below. Twisted metal and burned-out trucks littered the sand. Vultures circled in the pale sky. May and her squad were hauling the wounded back to base, their boots crunching over shattered glass and spent casings. Arya Vega sat on a rock nearby, rifle across her knees. Her hair was streaked with ash, her eyes distant. The smoke rising from the canyon curled around her like ghosts refusing to leave. Hale approached quietly. "We'll send a recovery team once the fires die," he said. "Newman's body will be identified and tagged." Arya didn't look up. "He's not the problem anymore." "Maybe not, but you said it yourself. Someone helped him. Someone inside our walls." She finally met his gaze. I'm done being hunted, Commander. It's time to start hunting back. Jonah approached, tablet in hand. His face was pale, drawn tight. We've been scraping through the data from Newman's drive. There's something you need to see. He handed it to Hale. The screen showed a list of encrypted transactions, money trails, false names, coordinates. But one signature stood out, a name that didn't belong there. General Pierce Donovan, Central Command. Hale's jaw tightened. That's impossible. Donovan's a hero. He's been in every major theater for 20 years. Which makes him the perfect ghost, Arya said. He's been using his position to redirect supply chains and intelligence feeds. Every time we hit a dead end, he was behind it. Jonah nodded grimly. And every team that got too close ended up wiped out, like Task Force Orion. Arya's hands tightened on her rifle. He burned my people to cover his tracks, and he's still out there. May approached, blood still smeared across her cheek. Then what's the play, Commander? Hale looked over the valley one last time, smoke curling like ink in the wind. We rebuild, he said. We report this up the chain, but not through official channels. If Donovan's embedded that deep, we'll need proof before we move. Arya stood, slinging her rifle across her back. Proof won't be enough. He's protected by rank and shadows. You can't arrest a ghost with paperwork. Hale gave her a small, knowing smile. No, but we can haunt him. For a moment, silence held them. Broken soldiers in a desert that had seen too much. Then the radio on Jonah's shoulder crackled. Command wants a sitrep. They're asking who led the counteroffensive. Hale glanced at Arya. She raised an eyebrow. What did you tell them? I told them a ghost did. May laughed softly, though it sounded like exhaustion more than humor. You're going to get us all court-martialed. Maybe, Hale said, but if we do this right, we'll drag Donovan into the light before they can bury us. Jonah scrolled through the tablet again, pulling up coordinates. I traced one of the shell accounts. It leads to a black site in Istanbul, registered under a logistics shell run by Donovan's office. If he's moving money, that's where it's going. Arya's eyes sharpened. Then that's where we start. Arya, Hale began. She turned to him. You don't owe me anything, Commander. You've already saved my life twice. That's not the point, he said. You're not doing this alone. She smiled faintly. I never do. May walked up beside them, rifle slung. Well, if you're forming a suicide squad, count me in. Jonah sighed. Guess I'll bring the brains. Hale looked at his people, bloodied, broken, and ready to march back into the fire. Then it settled. We go dark, follow the trail, and end this where it began. Arya nodded, stepping closer until they stood shoulder to shoulder. The sun rose higher behind them, setting the horizon ablaze. The ghosts of the fallen seemed to fade into the light. Commander, she said softly, you ever wonder if the war will actually end? Hale stared toward the east, where the wind carried the faint echo of engines far away. War doesn't end, he said. It just changes names. They started walking, 4 figures against a blood-red sky heading toward a new battlefield no map dared to mark. Behind them, outpost talons smoldered, a scar carved into the desert. Ahead, the truth waited. And this time, the ghosts would be the ones hunting. Night fell over Istanbul like spilled ink. The Bosphorus shimmered beneath the city lights, reflections bending and breaking against the current. In a high-rise tower overlooking the water, General Pierce Donovan stood before a wall of glass, hands clasped behind his back. His reflection stared back, a man carved from confidence and power. Behind him a voice spoke. Newman's dead. Donovan didn't turn. Yes, I heard. A pity. He was efficient, if undisciplined. The messenger hesitated. It was Vega, sir. She's alive. For the first time, Donovan moved. His reflection cracked under the weight of his grin. Is she? I was beginning to miss her. He poured himself a drink, amber liquid catching the city's light. How did she find him? We're not sure yet, but she's not working alone anymore. There's a commander with her, Marcus Hale. Donovan's smile faded. Hale. He took a slow sip. He should have stayed in his desert. The messenger cleared his throat. What do you want us to do? Donovan turned from the window. The city lights painted his metals gold, but his eyes were cold iron. Nothing. Let them chase ghosts. We'll control the story. By the time they realize how deep this goes, the world will be too busy burning. The messenger hesitated. Sir, with respect, Vega won't stop. Donovan stepped closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. Neither will I. Across the city, in a dim apartment above an abandoned warehouse, Arya Vega sat at a table cluttered with weapons, files, and an old laptop glowing faint blue. The room smelled of oil and adrenaline. Hale leaned against the wall behind her, studying the intel on the screen. May was cleaning her rifle in the corner, while Jonah patched into encrypted networks, fingers moving like a pianist. This is him, Arya said, zooming in on a grainy surveillance image of Donovan leaving the same tower. General Pierce Donovan, U.S. Central Command liaison to multiple private contractors, money, weapons, and political immunity. The perfect cover. Mai whistled softly. That's not just a traitor, that's a one-man government. Jonah frowned. We can't touch him, not officially. He's insulated by bureaucracy and billions. Hale crossed his arms. Then we don't go official, we go surgical. Arya looked up, a glint of steel in her eyes. We go hunting. Jonah raised an eyebrow. You're talking about taking down one of the most powerful men in the military. I'm talking about finishing what he started, she said. He built this war. We're just taking the match out of his hand. The laptop pinged, a new data trace. Jonah leaned closer. Got something. Donovan's schedule includes a security summit in Geneva, 2 days from now. He's traveling under diplomatic cover. Hale pushed off the wall. That's our window. Geneva? May said, slamming a magazine into her rifle. You mean somewhere civilized for once? Hale smirked. Let's try not to burn it down. Arya closed the laptop. No promises. At dawn, they moved. 4 shadows crossing the Bosphorus Bridge in silence. The city was waking, unaware that another war was already taking shape. In the harbor below, a small freighter idled, its engines low, waiting for them. As Arya stepped aboard, she paused to look back at the skyline. The tower where Donovan stood now, just a point of light among thousands. Somewhere in that glass box, the man who had burned her life to ash was sipping whiskey and thinking he'd won. She whispered to the wind, You're next. Hale joined her at the railing. You really think he'll show himself in Geneva? He'll have to, she said. Men like him crave the spotlight, and when he steps into it, we'll be waiting, Hale finished. The ship pulled away from the dock, slicing through the dark water like a blade. The city grew smaller behind them, its lights fading into the fog. Ahead, the horizon burned faint gold with morning. Jonah checked his comms. We're dark, no transmissions, no trace. Good, Hale said. Let's keep it that way. Arya looked out at the sea. The ghosts of her past seemed to drift on the waves, whispering promises of unfinished business. She let the wind carry them away. For the first time in years, she didn't feel hunted. She felt ready. And somewhere behind the glass towers of power, a man named Donovan felt a chill crawl down his spine, though he couldn't say why. Because ghosts never stay buried for long.